I was dying. The stage lights slowly dimmed as my heart beat weaker and weaker. In that moment, between life and death, I saw something I should never have seen, a dark valley filled with faces known throughout the world, faces that had graced magazine covers, had filled stadiums, had made millions weep, but there, in that somber place, their expressions were completely different. There was no glamour, no applause, no cameras, only darkness and a deafening silence broken by cries of despair. I saw Whitney Houston, her voice that once moved mountains, now broken in an eternal lament. I saw Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, crawling in the shadows, and in that instant, I understood something terrifying. Fame has a price that no one tells us about, a price paid after the lights go out forever. I woke up in the emergency room with doctors shouting orders around me. I had survived, but what I saw in those minutes of clinical death changed everything I thought I knew about success, glory, and the true meaning of our lives. My name doesn't matter, what matters is that I was famous too, not at the level of those legends I saw in that valley, but enough to understand the deadly seduction of that world. For years I chased the spotlight like an addict chases their next fix. Every like, every clap, every shout of admiration was oxygen for my inflated ego. I told myself I did it for the art, for the music, to connect with people. Lies. I did it for the adoration, to feel like a god among mortals. My family constantly warned me, "You're losing your soul." My mother would tell me, tears welling in her eyes. I would laugh, convinced that she simply didn't understand what it meant to be special, to be chosen, to be different. My father tried to talk to me about values, about humility, about staying grounded. His words went in one ear and out the other. How could they, ordinary people living ordinary lives, grasp the magnitude of my destiny? I was destined for something greater, or at least that's what I believed. The entertainment industry is a machine designed to consume souls. It lures you in with promises of immortality, of leaving a legacy, of being remembered, always, and it works. It works because we all have that deep yearning for meaning, for importance, for transcendence. But what they don't tell you is that this machine doesn't distinguish between talent and vanity, between genuine passion and unchecked ego. It simply chews and spits out. I signed my first record deal at 22. I remember that day like it was yesterday. The luxurious office, the executive and his $5,000 suit, the glittering promises floating in the air. "You're going to be a star," they told me, and I believed it with every fiber of my being. I didn't read the fine print, I didn't ask about the hidden clauses, I didn't investigate what had happened to the previous artists on that same label. I just saw the lights, the glory, my name in giant letters. I signed without hesitation. That was my first mistake of many that would come. The first few years were magical. My first single reached the top 10, interviews multiplied, social media exploded with every post I made. I was recognized on the street, in restaurants, at airports. Girls screamed my name, boys wanted to be like me. My parents finally seemed proud, although I noticed something strange in their eyes, as if they were seeing a stranger instead of their son. And they were right. I was no longer their son. I was a brand, a product, an image carefully constructed by a team of publicists, managers, and producers. Every word I said was calculated. Every photo I posted was edited 20 times. Every move was strategic. I had ceased to be a human to become a perfect illusion. And the worst part is that I loved it. I loved the constant attention, the endless validation, the power to influence millions with a simple message. It was like a drug running through my veins, but like any drug, I needed more and more to feel the same effect. I met Whitney Houston at a charity gala 2 years before her death. I was at the peak of my career. She was attempting a comeback after years of scandals and personal struggles. We spoke briefly backstage. She looked at me with those eyes that had once shone with the light of 1,000 stars and said something I'll never forget. "Take care of your soul, kid. This world eats you up inside and you don't even realize it until it's too late." I smiled politely, thinking she was being dramatic, projecting her own demons onto me. How naive I was, how terribly naive. She knew exactly what she was talking about. She had lived the dream and had discovered it was a nightmare in disguise. Her voice, that perfect instrument that could make an entire stadium weep, hadn't been enough to fill the void that was growing inside her. No amount of awards, no amount of money, no amount of fan love could plug that black hole at her center, and she knew it. She knew it and tried to warn me, but I didn't listen. My breakdown began subtly. First came the insomnia, the endless nights staring at the ceiling, my mind racing at 1,000 kilometers per hour, replaying every negative comment, every criticism, every sign that maybe my star was starting to fade. Then came the sleeping pills, I told myself, just to calm my nerves before a performance, just to keep up with the frenetic pace that my career demanded. My manager got them easily. In this world, everything is easily obtained when you have money and fame, drugs, alcohol, people willing to say yes to anything. It's an ecosystem designed to slowly destroy you while they applaud you. The doctors warned me about my blood pressure, about my dangerously fluctuating weight, about the signs that my body was breaking down, but I had a tour scheduled, 3 albums in the works, advertising contracts to fulfill. There was no time to be sick, no time to be human, there was only time to be the perfect image that everyone expected. The night of my temporary death began like any other, a concert in a packed stadium, thousands of people singing my songs, the adrenaline coursing through my veins like electricity. But in the middle of the 3rd song, I felt something strange in my chest, a sharp pain that spread like fire. The stage lights seemed to intensify until they became blinding suns. The sound of the crowd distorted, becoming distant and strange. My legs stopped responding. I saw the stage floor rapidly approaching my face and then darkness, but it wasn't a normal darkness, it was a living, dense darkness that enveloped me and pulled me down, toward a place that shouldn't exist, toward the valley that would change everything. The valley wasn't like the depictions of hell I had seen in movies or paintings. There were no giant flames or wrenching demons. It was something much more subtle and, for that very reason, terrifying. It was a gray, hazy place, where time didn't exist and the silence was broken only by soul-chilling wails. And there, walking aimlessly, I recognized faces that the whole world knew, faces that had been immortalized on gold records, in statues, in museums, but here there was none of that glory, only desolation. I saw Whitney Houston first. She wasn't singing, her mouth was open as if she wanted to produce sound, but nothing came out, only a heartbreaking silence. She moved through the fog with desperate gestures, searching for something she would clearly never find. I approached her instinctively, but when I extended my hand, she passed through me as if I were a ghost, or perhaps she was the ghost. In that place it was impossible to tell. Further on I saw Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, the man who had revolutionized music and culture, but here he was reduced to a pathetic shadow of himself. He was literally crawling, his hands clutching onto nothing, his empty eyes staring straight ahead without truly seeing. I tried to speak to him, but my voice made no sound. It was as if that place absorbed all forms of communication, all forms of human connection. Only absolute isolation remained, the deepest loneliness any human being could experience. And then I understood something horrible. This was the fate of those who had lived for the adoration of the masses, who had built their entire identities on external validation, who had forgotten who they truly were beneath the lights and the makeup. This was the price of selling your soul on the altar of fame. But the most terrifying thing wasn't seeing these fallen legends. The most terrifying thing was realizing that I was walking the same path. Every decision I had made, every value I had sacrificed, every relationship I had destroyed in the name of my career, had brought me closer and closer to that valley. I hadn't gotten there by accident. I had been building my way there, brick by brick, decision by decision, lie by lie. The warnings had been there all along. My mother crying when I cancelled another family dinner for a photo shoot. My father asking me when was the last time I had gone to church, prayed, thought about something bigger than my career. My old friends slowly drifting away because I could no longer have normal conversations, because everything in my life revolved around my success. I had ignored all the signs, I had chosen fame over love, glory over authenticity, image over truth, reality. A figure materialized before me in that valley. It wasn't a celebrity, it was something darker, more ancient, a presence that emanated power and terror in equal measure. It had no defined face, but I could feel its malicious smile. "Welcome," it said in a voice that seemed to come from every direction at once. "All those who sell their souls for applause eventually end up here. Do you like what you see?" These were the greatest, those the world worshipped, those who thought their legacy would make them immortal. But here they are, discovering that earthly immortality means nothing in eternity. I wanted to run, to scream, to wake up from that nightmare, but I was paralyzed. The figure continued, "Every like you received, every photo taken of you, every time you heard your name on the lips of strangers, you were feeding this, you were building your prison, and the best part is that you did it willingly. No one forced you. You chose adoration over true love, you chose the validation of millions of strangers over genuine connection with those who truly knew you." The words of that entity hit me like hammers because they were true. Every word was a truth I had been avoiding for years. I remembered the last time my mother tried to hug me and I pushed her away because I was checking my social media. I remembered when my best friend from childhood invited me to his wedding and I sent an assistant with an expensive gift instead of going in person. I remembered the girl who genuinely loved me before I was famous and how I left her because her image didn't fit with my new personal brand. I remembered every moment I had chosen illusion over reality, applause over love, fame over humanity, and in that dark valley, surrounded by the lost souls of fallen legends, I finally saw the naked and brutal truth. I had wasted my life chasing a lie, a beautiful, seductive lie, but a lie nonetheless. "You still have time," another voice broke through the darkness. This one was different, warm, luminous, full of hope. A light began to break through the fog of the valley. The dark entity retreated with a hiss of frustration. "Your time has not yet come," the voice continued. "I'm showing you this as a warning, not as your final destiny, but you must choose now, here, in this moment between life and death. Will you continue selling your soul for temporary applause, or will you return and live an authentic life, a life that has meaning beyond the screens and stages?" The light grew, pushing back the darkness. Dni looked at me for a moment, and in her eyes I saw a glimmer of something that seemed like hope, as if my decision could somehow redeem something in her as well. Elvis looked up for the first time, his empty eyes now gleaming with curiosity. Everyone in that valley seemed to be waiting for my answer. Then I heard another sound. Beeps of machines, human voices shouting medical orders. "We have a pulse." Someone shouted, "He's coming back." My body was being pulled back, as if an invisible rope were dragging me upward, away from the valley, away from the lost souls, away from that horrible unnecessary truth. The last thing I saw before the darkness turned into blinding light was Whitney. This time she could speak. Her lips formed a word that echoed in my soul, "Choose." And then everything went white, sharp pain in my chest, hands pressing, desperate voices, and finally, my eyes opening to the fluorescent lights of an emergency room. I had returned, but I was no longer the same man who had stepped onto that stage. The first few days after my return were confusing. The doctors told me I had suffered a massive cardiac arrest on stage and had technically been dead for 4 minutes, minutes that, for me, had been an eternity. 4 minutes that had destroyed all the illusions I had built over years. My manager showed up the second day with contracts, ideas to turn my death on stage into an advertising campaign. "This is pure gold," he told me with gleaming eyes. "People are going to love the narrative of your triumphant return. We can make a documentary, a concept album, a world tour called Rebirth. You're going to be bigger than ever." I looked at him as if he were a stranger, and in a way, I was, or maybe I was the stranger. "Now you're fired," I told him with a calmness that surprised even myself. His face went from shock to disbelief and finally to fury. "Are you crazy? We have contracts, you have obligations, you can't just quit everything." But I had already made my decision. In that dark valley, among the lost souls of fallen legends, I had seen my future if I continued down that path and had chosen something different. I called my parents that same night. My mother answered on the first ring. I could hear the relief and fear mingled in her voice. "Son, we thought we'd lost you." Tears began to stream uncontrollably down my face. "You almost lost me, Mom." I almost lost myself completely. I told her everything, the valley, the shadows of Whitney and Elvis, the choice I had faced. She listened in silence, broken only by her own sobs. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then my father picked up the phone. "Come home, son, just come home." And that's exactly what I did. I cancelled everything, the scheduled concerts, the interviews, the award show appearances. My legal representatives threatened to sue me. The media speculated about a nervous breakdown. Social media exploded with theories about drugs, hidden scandals, conspiracies. I let them talk. For the first time in years, their opinion didn't matter to me. Going back home was like being reborn. Everything was familiar, but also completely different, because I was different. My parents' house, which I had visited maybe 3 times in the last 5 years, greeted me with the smell of food, homey, and walls covered in family photos, photos of a child I barely remembered being, a child with simple dreams of making music because he loved it, not because he wanted to be adored. My room was still untouched. My old guitar leaned in the corner, covered in dust, but waiting for me. I picked it up with trembling hands and played a simple chord. It sounded out of tune, imperfect, beautiful, more beautiful than any $1 million production I'd recorded in recent years, because it was real, it was authentic, it was mine. My parents didn't ask me anything those first few days. They just let me be. They let me sleep without pills for the first time in years. They let me eat without counting calories or thinking about how I'd look in photos. They let me exist without having to act, without having to be a perfect, edited version of myself. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time. I started looking for professional help, a therapist specializing in fame addiction. Yes, that exists. Because fame is as addictive as any drug, perhaps more so, because it's socially accepted, even celebrated. In our sessions, I began to unpack years of toxic decisions, distorted values, an identity built on sand. They asked you what you wanted to do when you grew up, the therapist told me in one session, but were you ever asked who you wanted to be? The question hit me like a punch. No, I had never asked myself that. I had only wanted to be famous, successful, admired, but I had never asked myself what kind of person I wanted to be, what values I wanted to live by, what real legacy not of fame, but of character I wanted to leave. I began to rebuild my life from scratch, not as a celebrity trying to make a comeback, but as a human being trying to find authenticity. It was the hardest work I'd ever done in my life, 1,000 times harder than any tour or recording, because it required brutal honesty with myself. It required facing all the people I'd hurt, all the opportunities for genuine love I'd wasted, all the moments irreplaceable people I had sacrificed on the altar of fame. I searched for the people I had left behind, my old best friend who had married without me, the girl who had genuinely loved me and whom I had discarded, original bandmates I had betrayed when I got my big record deal. Not all of them wanted to talk to me, and I understood. But those who did gave me something more valuable than any award or recognition. They gave me honesty. They told me how I had hurt them, how my selfishness had left scars, how they had had to watch me transform into someone unrecognizable. Their words hurt more than any media criticism because they came from people who had truly known me, and their pain was real, not manufactured for clicks or views. I apologized without excuses, without trying to justify my actions, without expecting forgiveness. Some eventually forgave me, others didn't. And I had to learn to live with it, to accept that some things we break can't be repaired, that some consequences of our decisions are permanent. Months later, I started making music again, but it was different. I wasn't making it for stadiums or charts. I was making it in my living room, for my family and a few friends. Simple, honest songs, without elaborate production, songs about the truth I had discovered in that dark valley. About the fallacy of constructing your identity, about the worship of strangers, about the emptiness that no amount of fame can fill, about the courage to choose authenticity over image. One day, my old friend, who had been my best friend in childhood, the one who had attended his wedding without me, heard me play. When I finished, I had tears in my eyes. "This is you," he said. "The real you, the one I had missed." We hugged, and in that hug I felt more satisfaction than in any stadium filled with thousands of people, because this was real, this mattered, this would remain when all the lights went out. I went back to church too, not for image or because it was the right thing to do for my brand, but because I had seen the abyss. I had been on the verge of losing my soul permanently and had understood that there are things bigger than us, more important than our egos, more lasting than our temporary fame. I found peace in prayer, not the performative prayers I had given for cameras in my days of fame, but genuine, vulnerable prayers, from a broken man seeking redemption. I started serving in my local community, volunteering in a shelter, helping homeless people, people who didn't know who I had been and who didn't care. They treated me like a normal human being, and that was exactly what I needed. They taught me that true value doesn't come from how many people know your name, but from how you impact the lives of those in front of you. One day, an elderly woman at the shelter thanked me for serving her food. He looked me in the eyes with sincerity and said, "God bless you, young man." Those words meant more than any award I had won, because they came from a place of pure gratitude, not worship or idolatry. It was human valued, simple and real. A year after my death on that stage, I recorded one last album, not with a major label, but independently, not for the charts, but to leave a testimony. I called it The Valley. Each song told part of my story, the allure of fame, the loss of identity, the vision of that dark place, the choice to return, the struggle for authenticity. I didn't expect it to sell much, I didn't expect it to get radio play, but something incredible happened. People who were struggling with the same questions, with the same emptiness, with the same addiction to external validation, found the album. They wrote me messages telling me their own stories, how they had been chasing dreams that weren't really theirs, how they had been building false identities to impressing others, how my songs had given them the courage to choose authenticity. That it was the moment I understood the true meaning of impact. It's not how many people know your name, it's how many lives you genuinely touch. It's not how many followers you have, it's how many people you help find their own path. It's not how many awards you win, it's how much real love you share. Today I live a simple life. I teach music to children in my community. I help young artists navigate the industry without losing their souls. I spend real time with my family. I cultivate genuine relationships with friends who know me without the masks. I make music because I love it, not because I need validation, and I sleep peacefully, without pills, because I know who I am. I am not a carefully constructed image. I'm not a brand. I am not a set of numbers on social media. I am an imperfect human being trying to live authentically, learning every day what truly matters. The sight of that valley saved my life because it showed me exactly where I was headed if I continued down that path. I saw the fate of those who sold their souls for fleeting applause. I saw Whitney Houston, whose perfect voice couldn't save her from the prison she had built. I saw Elvis Presley, whose reign of rock and roll ended in eternal desolation, and I chose a different path, a more difficult one, but infinitely more rewarding. If you are reading this and find yourself chasing fame, external validation, mass adoration, let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart, it's not worth it. The applause fades, the likes disappear, the followers leave, the lights go out, and when all that is gone, what remains? If you built your identity on those things, only a painful emptiness remains. But if you built your life about authenticity, about genuine love, about service to others, about real value, something remains that no change in your popularity can take away. Your soul remains intact, your humanity remains, your peace remains. I've been on both sides. I've experienced the glory of packed stadiums and the peace of a simple family dinner, and I promise you without a doubt that the latter is infinitely more valuable. Choose wisely, choose before it's too late, choose before you find yourself in that dark valley with no possibility of return. because not everyone gets a second chance like I did. The dark truth that celebrities try to hide isn't about secret rituals or Illuminati conspiracies. It's much simpler and more terrifying. It's that fame doesn't fill the human void. It's that the adoration of millions doesn't replace the love of those who truly know you. You can gain the whole world and lose your soul in the process. And when the lights finally go out for good, the only thing that matters is who you truly were, not who you pretended to be. That is the truth I saw in that valley. That is the warning Whitney tried to give me before it was too late for her, and that is why I now live each day trying to be authentic, to love genuinely, to serve humbly, because I know exactly what's at stake, and I tell you with complete honesty, no amount of fame is worth the price of your soul, none. If this message touched you in any way, if it made you reflect on your own choices and priorities, I invite you to share it, not for me, but for someone else who might need to hear this truth, someone who is on the path I was on, chasing illusions, building on sand. Perhaps sharing this can be the warning that saves you from your own dark valley. And if you enjoyed this content, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more stories that challenge the illusions of the modern world and help us all live more authentically. Share this video so more people can hear this truth. May God bless you and always guide you toward authenticity over illusion, toward real love over false worship, toward genuine life over performative existence. The choice is yours. Choose wisely.